Hey, I'm back, and today we're playing Antietam.
I'm sorry about the ambient sound. I didn't realize it was a problem. If it is, my apologies. I'll see you next video.
People are always asking me if I only had one Musket Battles game, which one would it be? And I always tell them, for me, it would be Antietam. It's got a small footprint, it's very portable, you can play it anywhere. It has relatively few blocks, so you're not trying to overwhelmed with huge numbers of troops to move around, and yet it has enough chits to draw to make the chit draw interesting. Let's get into this. Now, every time I've played this game hundreds of times, every time I play, I don't have to come up with a whole new strategy. I'm going to use the same strategy I often use. The one thing I'm doing differently this game is Burnside's large core. I'm going to have come across Antietam here at this upper bridge and then move and attack the sunken road. Green's corps will demonstrate down here. The cavalry will come out here and make sure that there's no silliness tried at any of the lower fords. Hooker's first corps and Sumner's second corps will be the main driving force to push the Confederates away from Antietam. Now, the goal in Musket Battles Antietam is to defeat the armies. You defeat them either by destroying half the formations, or the quick way of doing it is to capture a baggage train. Capture baggage train, game over. That shows that you've broken into the background of the army. Now, you need baggage trains to rally your troops, help them recover to full strength. And you can move your baggage trains around, but they can't do that until they unpack. When they unpack, that's where they stay for the rest of the game. So deciding where to unpack your baggage trains is huge. In general, the South wants to hold on to an area long enough to force the North to unpack their baggage trains to recover their troops and keep the attack growing. At that point, then the South can fade back, unpack its baggage trains. Now the North is too far away. It takes too many turns to go back, recover, and then come forward again. The game will be over. Whereas the South, having fallen back on its lines, will have the supply right there and can immediately be fresh right on the line. That's ideal. Let's see how this plays out. Turn 1, early morning. I told you what my general plan is. Now I'm going to go through, draw the chits, move the troops, and we'll reconvene again before the battle phase. The Northern artillery opens up on Longstreet's artillery and sends it tumbling back. Jackson's artillery fires at Sedgwick's division, causing some confusion. Alright, turn 1 combat phase. The only troops to collide on turn 1 are Hooker's corps with D.H. Hill's division of Jackson's corps. They're on a hill. So the North fighting uphill is at a disadvantage. But both die, show 2 hits. 2 hits destroys Meade's Green division. It's like saying Green's division pushed back elements of D.H. Hill's division, but they totally eliminated themselves. They're exhausted. They're no longer of any value today. They were backed up by elements of Doubleday's division. They press on. In a strange turn of events, the Union does 2 hits, and the Confederates none. D.H. Hill's division has been driven from the hill. Now it's turn 2. I'll rejoin you at the combat side of turn 2. But I expect to show some artillery fire in between. 2 Union artillery batteries open up on troops in the sunken road. They each do 1 hit. The first hit flips Ewell's to spent. The second hit drives his troops from the sunken road. Alright, here we are, turn 2, mid-morning combat. Now when we look at this for turn 2, we see that having pushed D.H. Hill off the hill allows Doubleday to throw the full weight of his division on D.H. Hill's retreating division, opening up the flank of Jackson's troops. Here was the decision point. Does Jackson bail and completely abandon the position without even a fight? Or does he try and hold? Jackson is going to try and hold. Now, Ewell's spent division has stayed back because they expected a huge push and it would just be throwing it away to keep it forward. So they threw in some detachments to try and hold the sunken road. Burnside, meanwhile, is throwing everything he has at it. Now the South has tactical advantage, meaning they get to choose what order the combats are decided in. They're going to do Ewell's good division here in the sunken road. Now Burnside is throwing his Green division in first, hoping to at least do something to Ewell's division before Rodman's good division hits. They'll probably sacrifice the Green troops, but maybe they can do some damage. Let's see. This is the weaker die, but they both do 2.
The Union is getting so lucky on this. Now 2 hits destroys this green division. That's 2 blocks destroyed for the Union. 2 hits causes Ewell to fall back. Now Wilcox's drive on the detachment in the entrenchment. Now it looks like they both do 1, but you see the detachment does 1 hit on a white result. It would have needed, even though it says 0, a white result is 1 hit. A black result is 0 hits. So the detachment is eliminated. Detachments don't count against an army's total destroyed. Now it takes 12 losses to break the Union Army and only 8 to break the Southern Army. There's lots of units to rally to fresh, so they'd like to unpack bags, but they don't want to unpack bags too soon. They want to make sure the North has to unpack their bags first. Although, the way combat has been going, that may not be an option. Now, the Confederate player realizes this is probably going to be a losing situation. He wants to see what the fate is over here, so he knows how hard to hold this area. Neither side has cover here. It's a straight up fight. Again, the dice over here shows a 0. The die on this side, which is the Union, shows a 2. The 2 eliminates this Confederate block. This Confederate block does not want to continue this battle. They retreat. Now Jackson sees he just wants to leave. Now the South is outflanked here, so they use the disadvantage dice, and the North uses the advantage dice. But the South has cover, so they get a regular die. So it's a regular die versus an advantage die. The advantage die shows 2, the regular die shows 0. Confederate artillery flips to spent and retreats. Jackson sees nothing, no advantage in fighting this combat. So he retreats as well, and that flips him to spent. Boy, if any of these southern positions had held, there'd be some hope. But this is a perfect storm for the North. Now it's turn 3, late morning. Turn 3 sees Franklin's 6th Corps arrive. Oh boy, more Union troops. Lee is thrilled. Alright, once again, I'll go through the chit draw phase, and I'll see you on the other side at the combat phase. Longstreet's artillery fires at Wilcox's division, doing 2 damage, sending Wilcox tumbling back to the Antietam. Longstreet briefly considers following that up and pushing, maybe breaking through, and wouldn't that be a cool Southern victory? But when he's out here in the open, the Northern artillery will open up and cut all his troops down. He stays put. Longstreet's artillery fires on Johnson's men, and they're going to fall back. Alright, let us move to the combat phase. Now you see here that Jackson's corps is full of spent units, and he's simply pulling them back, hoping he gets a chance to rally them and form a line. Central to that delay is Stuart's cavalry. Now one of the reasons this falling back was possible and as successful as it was right now is because Jackson was able to delay and not move to last. So all these units were up here, and McClellan couldn't move his troops forward. Just lined them up for a big attack, but Jackson was able to fall back. What that represents was the North is having trouble getting a drive going successfully, and the South is able to slip away. Now as the Northern player playing McClellan, you're hoping you can catch the South, but at this moment, you've been foiled. And now it's turn 4, midday. Next turn, turn 5, A.P. Hill comes on. It's another elite block, giving Jackson hope. Longstreet's artillery opens up on Porter's corps, doing 2 damage, driving them back, and pushing the artillery with them. Alright, now midday movement ends. The South is in pack bags here and here. This is where they're going to hold. Now these bags, Longstreet's bags, unpacked early. If I unpacked them now, I would have rather had this like this, but this is the way they are. Now the South decides the order of combat. White's cavalry brigade, having done its job of holding up the Northern troops, falls back. The 2 infantry detachments, including Evans' brigade, stay for the fight. Go through regular dice. South has a detachment result. White is success, black is failure. Union does 2 hits, and the black fails. It only takes 1 to destroy a detachment, and now it's gone. Evans' brigade in Sharpsburg, fighting with Wilcox's spent division. They both do 1 hit. 1 hit destroys the detachment and causes Wilcox to retreat.
So in other words, the detachment drove them out, but exhausted itself in doing so and is no longer able to fight. And now it's turn 5. Turn 5 is early afternoon, and it means that AP Hill comes on. Now unfortunately for the South, they weren't able to force the North to unpack bags, back here. So the bags are still moving forward. So it's going to be a hot fight, looks like right along here. And then Longstreet's artillery sees the Union artillery parking up right along the Bournesboro Turnpike. And they have something to say about that. They have a lot to say about that. 2 hits. Sending the artillery back and throwing the Union center into confusion. This will help the South because it's going to motivate the North to unpack bags back here somewhere rather than up here. They hope. Alright, here we have turn 5 combat. Some interesting maneuvers have occurred. Pleasanton and Mansfield conferred. Mansfield may not have been that impressive a leader, but Pleasanton was pretty sharp, and he convinced Mansfield to attack now. He's protecting the flanks. Mansfield drives across. He was able to do this at the same time that Franklin started his drive. Sumner's giving his all to try and drive Ewell back. Ewell had just refreshed and is fresh and ready to go. Meanwhile, Hooker is being held up by the Confederate cavalry. This time the order of combat won't make that much difference, so we're going to start on this side and just move her along. Here we go. And of course up here with the cavalry, they're just going to fall back when it comes their turn. We begin with Davis's cavalry brigade demonstrating in front of D. Jones. And all he does is fall back before combat. They were just trying to distract these Confederates from doing anything nasty over here. Over here, the North is outflanked because they're attacking across the bridge. But they have outflanked the South. But the South is in cover. So the North is at a slight disadvantage. South has a regular die. They both do 1. This is the North disadvantaged die. But it still does 1 on 1. McClass is going to elect to retreat and not try and hold a position like that. Over here, we have Franklin's 6th Corps charging artillery. Now there's no advantages, they both use even dice, but the artillery damage is done first. And it's 2 and 2. This die is this southern die. Now 2 on green is enough to destroy it. Counts as 3. Ordinarily, bombardment can't destroy it. It only can push back. But this is close combat. This is great. The damage is real. Now they're backed up, so this does drive them back, and it ends up looking like that. Anderson's got gumption. He's going to push this fight. South gets 1, North gets 2. Now this might look bad for the South, but the North doesn't really have any decent troops here. They've got 1 fresh green division, 2 spent divisions. This is Union cavalry, which is basically a recon force. And here we've got 2 detachments. Not a strong force. The South has their bags unpacked here and here, so these are all going to be fresh. Here we have Sumner driving on Ewell's division. Ewell's in the woods. The disadvantaged North gets 0. South does 2. North decides to push forward, but now it's French's green division. This time they both get 2. 2 hits destroys a green block. Now the North has lost 4 of 12. Ewell's pushed back, but he still has a fresh block forward. And finally over here, we have Hampton's cavalry. You know what? They're going to hold. They're elite. They're going to see if they can't put some hurt on Doubleday. Doubleday does 2 on them. They do 1 on Doubleday. Now 2 on an elite unit. The first one was absorbed by the elite. The second one hits. And they fall back, which is what they were going to do anyway. And the North gets another spent unit. Alright, now here we are, turn 6. Late afternoon. Well, now I'm under the impression, at this point, that the North is hurting. Because now the South is back here. They can unpack, their bags are unpacked. They can start rallying everybody. Now, the North can start rallying everybody also. But they won't be anywhere near enough. They've only got 3 turns left. They need to get a victory. Or the South will just retreat off in the night. Alright, let's go through chit-drawn movement. Now, this part of the battle, there's not a lot of artillery because the lines are moving. The artillery is all packaged up and rolling along. Okay, here we are, turn 6, an exciting combat. I've zoomed in a bit, and I've remembered to turn on my arc lights so we can actually see the map. We'll start over here with the cavalry on attack on Jones' division. Now they're attacking across the river, so they're outflanked. And they're detachments, so they only do 1 damage.
First detachment gets destroyed. Second detachment falls back.
Now here we have a mess of combat. Mansfield's Corps crossed over the hilltop, so they're at a -1, at disadvantage. Yet they do 1, and the South does none. Longstreet's troops hold. This time they do 2, while the North does 1.
2 will eliminate a spent block.
Mansfield keeps on... No, he doesn't.
These are just green troops, and he falls back.
Now they're spent. Over here, because they're hit from behind, they're outflanked. And the harshest result, the South receives 3 hits. The North suffers 0.
That destroys the block of Hood's Texans.
Not being able to retreat, McLaws moves forward. This time the North only does 1 hit. With nowhere to run, McLaws' men fight on. Again, they do 1 hit.
He has to retreat, no line of retreat. McLaws is destroyed. Now that's
1 block of McLaws. They have 2 blocks. There's still a block of McLaws' troops left. Now we have Burnside's drive through Sharpsburg. Now in Sharpsburg they become a little confused. They're now spent attacking Walker. Walker is firing on troops in a city, so they are at a disadvantage. They're even dice. Confederates do 2. Where are we at here? Confederates do 2. The North does 1. The North loses a block. Now they have 6 casualties. They're halfway to the army breaking. Now it's even odds. 2 spent and exhausted divisions fighting each other. And they both do 2. So they both fight desperately to the point of exhaustion, and neither are battle ready at this point. Now we have Sumner's drive on elements of Ewell's division. Ewell has cover in the woods. And they both do 2 damage.
2 hits, removes 1 of the blocks
From the Union,
and Ewell has to retreat.
last we have some of Fitzlee's elite cavalry delaying the Union push from Hooker's troops. This time the Union does 2 damage.
The cavalry gets none, so they're going to fall back.
So that ends turn 6 in the afternoon combat. Now we go to turn 7, early evening. Okay, here we are, turn 7 combat. And this is where it can really get tense. The North has lost 8 of 12 blocks. The South has lost 4 of 8 blocks. This is the part of the game where the fighting gets heavy because people don't give up. They keep pushing. Here we have Porter's fully functioning 5th Corps attacking elements of A.P. Hill's division. They both do 1. A.P. Hill becomes spent.
The lead block of Porter's division breaks and runs because they were green.
Now it's Sykes' division. And they both do 2.
The South loses a block.
And Sykes retreats. The bags lay open, though I'm sure it's not for long. Here we have elements of Ewell's division defending against Sumner's Corps. Each suffering 1 hit. Again, each suffering 1 hit.
This is an elite block. It absorbs it. Southern block retreats. And finally,
Desperate fighting with Jackson's Corps
and Hooker's Corps.
No one has cover. We have an elite, and a fresh, and a spent. So we begin this battle with the South up by 1 wound. But here the South inflicts 1 wound and the North inflicts 2. Now you have 2 elite divisions fighting. Ordinarily you don't want 2 elite divisions fighting because you're taking your elite division and getting rid of all its advantages. The South's goal is to delay. Since they're elite, they can live 1 round no matter how good the other guy rolls. So they're going to try and at least cause Hooker's men to be spent, and that will just delay them. They do. They get 2 hits. Hooker's men get 1 hit.
1 hit is absorbed by both sides, but the additional hit brings Hooker to spent.
But delay does make a difference. There's only 1 more turn, so he could run back and recover for the end of the game. It wouldn't matter. So maybe he can get lucky. Nope, he gets pushed back. South does 1 hit, he does nothing. Nothing! Alright, there we have it. Final turn. It looks like this is going to be a draw. If you just go by casualties, it's going to be a draw unless you get some major casualties, which is unlikely, or if the southern bags can be captured. First hit drawn is Jackson. Perfect. Porter wants to jump ahead and he needs a white result to do that.
You flip him, because now he's tried.
And he gets a white result. So now Porter's 5th Corps is going before 2nd Corps. Well, Jackson rolls. Can Jackson roll a white and get ahead of Porter?
Yes, Jackson jumps ahead of Porter.
But it doesn't end there because this is McClellan right here, and McClellan
Can re-roll for Porter. Will McClellan change history and make a difference? A white, yes. Fifth Corps jumps ahead. Well, Lee flips. Can Lee make a difference? Yes! So Jackson's Corps moves first. And with that, the game is decided, because the North cannot capture the bags. So, the Confederates have won Antietam. Now, it's one of those kind of have won. They've done exactly what they did historically, was they held the North off all day, and then in the night, they'll slide away. So it's essentially a draw. But the North's goal was to bag the Southern Army, and the Southern Army is going to get away. So I call that a Southern victory. Good game.